Fred Allan here, chatting with the amazingly talented actor, voice actor, storyteller, creative Eric Bauza. Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp has been on constant replay since it dropped on Netflix. And I appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out.
I guess I had to start it there. If you're gonna drop the Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp bomb on us, then there's only one way to start the interview. Thank you so much for having me on your show and your program. And yeah, it's one of those dream come trues in an age where getting a movie made at all is a miracle, and the fact that we're now in a you know I guess it's kind of a sequel. I guess would you call it a direct sequel? I'm not even sure.
I don't know because I know you've been the voice for a while, different iterations, whether it's features or cartoons, whatnot. But I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of fun. When I found out that there was going to be a new one, I was very excited because I'm in that age range, 49, where I grew up watching that show.
Yeah,
Chili Willy. I mean, like the whole gamut of those particular cartoons,
yeah.
and was able to introduce my son to those as well. And so he has had an affinity for Woody Woodpecker for a while, but I think it's cool. And the fact that you are able to get another film done, and Netflix, I think, has been good in that regard as far as providing a venue for things that might not necessarily make it to the big screen. So it's
Yeah,
cool. I think it's awesome for sure.
it's a nice, in between, and I feel like that's kind of where those, adaptations of animated characters into the live action world exist. Is like they may not want to take a risk on throwing it up on the big screen unless it's like one of those anomalies, like the original Space Jam from 1997. You know, but they don't necessarily have to be like those over $100 million budget films in order to get the views. You know what I mean? They could. I think this one was. Gosh, who only knows? I'm thinking in terms of Coyote versus Acme, which was 70 million. And
I was gonna ask. I was gonna see if you're gonna bring that up.
yeah, of course, why not? I mean, it's kind of like we can have a Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp movie, but we can't have, and that's like not comparing apples to oranges. Like I'm just saying, here it is, like a live action animated hybrid movie that was, clearly just meant for streaming, is kicking butt right now in the worldwide scope of Netflix's views, and I love it. Like it just, hey guys, like it could work. Like all you got to do is hit upload.
I know, because that's completely done, which I just found so interesting. Well, I have to say, I knew who you were, but when I saw you, I don't know, it's probably been a few years. You were on To Tell the Truth with Anthony Anderson. That was a lot of fun seeing you there. And I knew from the start who you were, and I knew that you were the voice. And we're watching, we're watching this show during the pandemic. I think it might have been even that far back. And I'm like, come on, guys, get it right. But you've been voicing these characters for a while. I want to ask you because I know with Disney, we've interviewed Daniel Ross, those guys that do the Disney voices. Brett, I'm curious, like there's you that does the bulk of this, but where is that decision made with those voices in particular? Like if it's going to be you or perhaps, Bob Bergen or one of these other amazing people like yourself. How are those choices made?
Well, right now, primarily it's myself, Jeff Bergman, Bob Bergen, Fred Tatasciore. People in the past, of course, that are still with us: Billy West, Maurice LaMarche. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few others, but people that have passed on: Joe Alasky, Greg Burson. Like I think I might only be the sixth person to voice Bugs Bunny in 83, 84 years.
Yeah.
Which is insane to me. He's like as old enough to be our grandparents, Bugs Bunny. I've always been gray. Yeah, gray hair. But yeah, that decision is made by the casting people and the storytellers, ultimately, people who are in charge of the storytelling process, what they need from the character they may hear in someone else. For instance, the first week, I think maybe actually maybe not be within a week, but definitely within like a month or so, or at least the first half year that I was voicing Bugs for the first time. Uh, you know, Space Jam came around, and LeBron and the Malcolm and the rest of casting picked Jeff, over whoever else was performing scratch dialogue. We were all performing temporary voices at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think just at the end of the day, they're just like, oh, this sounds closer to what we need here than that. And yeah, that's just how it is. And at the end of the day, it's for me, it's no hard feelings because I didn't create the character. That's these characters will always be Mel Blanc. Let's be serious here. Let's just be realistic here. It's like for me, Mel will only be for ultimately the guy who invented the sound of these characters. And we're just the lucky few that kind of help carry it into the next generation. And hopefully they find the original works. I always cite Mel Blanc in all of my interviews, and the two Emmys that I won. It's like if I weren't voicing these characters, if it weren't for Mel Blanc, I'd be driving you to the airport tomorrow.
That could be a fun ride. I mean, especially if you're performing voices on the way to the
see in St. Louis. Yeah,
yeah. You should have made that left turn in Albuquerque. That's where you
yeah, I'd be a great tour guide.
you would be. That I mean
Himalaya. Yeah.
That's funny.
The Himalayas mountains.
Well, it's so fascinating because I'm sitting here talking to you, Eric, and I see you, but in my ears, I hear these characters, and it's not just somebody like doing impersonations, but you're like fully delved into this character and you're acting, and you've got that whole piece. We've had so many cool voice actors on our show, obviously present company included. And the one of the themes that I've heard many people say, I think it was Rob Paulson, it's like you can do this and you can have these voices, but he always tells people acting, improv, all of those things are just as equally important to do as opposed to just coming to this studio with all this equipment that you have and just performing a voice, right? Because there's so much that emotes from even just those couple lines that you did just now.
Yeah, I mean it's again, it's all about the acting and the performance, and I just can't even imagine what it was like. Like I wish I had a time machine just to travel back to what, like the 40s and like to a warehouse somewhere on the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank. Mel Blanc is probably dressed in a full wool like 3-button suit, probably smoking indoors.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably drinking at 11 a.m. Who knows? But probably getting paid $5 per short or something like that just to put food on the table. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs, "Who's responsible for this?" Like he's making up all of these tones and catchphrases and anytime I do a line of these classic shorts, it always brings a smile to people's faces. And I'm like, did he even know like what he was, decades and lifetime generations later, did he know like the impact that his work was going to leave behind? So that he, like I always say, he's Santa Claus and I'm like mall Santa, like I'm the guy that's like, hey, I'm Bugs Bunny. And it's like, well, I guess we'll take it. Mel Blanc, he was Bugs Bunny. I guess we'll pass, we'll let you pass. But it brings such joy to people, anytime if I'm talking to you or someone finds out, I go to take visitors from out of town to the Warner Brothers tour, and it's so funny. It's either someone at Warner Brothers that's working there or someone in the tour. Like, it's like, hey, you look, I'm getting to that point now where it's like, I'm being recognized thanks to folks like yourself, sharing the story of my attachment to these characters, and it just it makes me so happy to see people happy just because of something that I loved as a kid. That's what it really comes down to for me is I and I imagine for anyone that performed the characters, like when I hear Bob or Jeff or Billy do the voices, I hear how much joy it transcends into the character when they perform it. I'm like, I can imagine like Jeff as a kid eating cereal, watching Looney Tunes as a kid. You know, I hear it in the performance that they deliver because it makes me smile. I'm like, man, that sounds so good. Like they're so good. Each and every one of those performers.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think they just transcend time and have been a part of people's lives forever. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and I think
crazy. Yeah, it's so wild.
that and the saying, you know, what's funny is funny. It's like if a funny joke was made in the 40s, it's still going to be funny if it's just well written, well performed, well executed. You're just going to be like, yeah, it's still good, you know. Which is why I'm glad, you know, they will never. Hopefully, they'll never get rid of a place where you can find the classic shorts, like on Max for HBO and Warner Brothers. Like they should be there all the time um because if they didn't exist, I wouldn't be working on like a lot of these reimaginings and you know these new versions of the characters. Like they should have a home somewhere so that people can enjoy the original works.
Yeah, 100%. Just as a sidebar, the fascinating thing about all of this, I worked a couple seasons at Six Flags when I was in the
Oh,
Bay Area
nice.
during their Fright Fest, and we had passes, and my son and I were able to go, and we worked with a lot of the characters, as they call them, who were also mascot characters, you know,
Oh,
Bugs
really?
Bunny, Marvin the Martian, they all kind of did the same thing. And when we would go visit, they would recognize me and give us special attention, especially the young lady that did Marvin. And it
Oh,
was
nice.
interesting. Yeah, it was really cool. But like, even though I know there's somebody inside of that
Yeah,
costume,
yeah.
it's like that suspended reality happens even for
Oh, yeah,
me.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just like so badass because it's like,
It's a whole other
you're,
dimension of performing. I actually, funny you mentioned that because I was just in New York City for Warner Brothers. They received a recognition from the Entertainment Community Fund, which is an organization that sets up people that have, you know, accidents. It's basically there to protect you in case you have like workers leave or something traumatic happens to you. It's a great kind of like charity and kind of this event that happened where they had me fly to New York, do the voices off stage, then come onto the stage and you know introduce myself as the voice one of the current voice performers of these characters. But all the while, the first bit was being acted out by the mascot characters on stage
that's
without me
cool.
present, and I met those performers, and they're so great. They were like completely how happy and obsessed I am with these characters, but in a different art form where it's like, yeah, I saw them out of costume, out of character,
Yeah.
and I was like, no, you're Bugs Bunny, I could tell, and you're Daffy. Like I could tell the two performers apart, and it was just it was amazing. I
Yeah,
was
it's so cool. Like just to be strolling along and run into like Porky Pig or like Marvin the Martian or whatever. It's
And they
just,
were, yeah, they were the like you said, the Marvin. Like you met the performer of Marvin. It's like they're specifically that character, right? Like
yeah.
so, I met the go-to Bugs in the New York area, probably on that side of the states, uh, and Daffy as well. And I was like, wow. I was like, I had so many questions.
I know. It's interesting. Like, it's almost like a starstruck attitude in a way, because it's like, Warner Brothers is very particular in casting those characters. And it's just like Disney. I want to ask you just a turn here really quick about just all these things that you've done, and you started out here and now you're there. When you go along through this process and you're learning how this all works, like early on when you started, what was like one or two things Eric, that were important to you, that you wanted to make sure people knew about you, when not necessarily like lobbying for the voice, but like knew that this could potentially be something that you would be doing? If that question makes sense, it's a little bit
Yeah,
broad.
I think in general, as a voiceover artist, never mind which character, I think I was just happy to be in the booth, and I think
Yeah.
it's uh, it's funny because I thought, oh, how do you get into voice acting at all? Like, what do you do? Like, uh, I should have went to performing arts, class or school, because that's essentially what I ended up learning on the job. Was like, it's no matter how many impressions you can do or how many vocal tricks you have up your sleeve, nothing will ever compare to, like, what Rob Paulson said and what you just mentioned before, was is the good acting. And I
Yeah.
I had to learn that on the job. But what got me through the door, I guess, was just like not giving up, and just kind of I did it in such a way that, again, I used my ability to draw. I was a cartoonist.
Yeah.
I was a character layout artist before I became an animator. So I was already in studios where they were producing pilots or commercials that needed temporary voices, and I'd be like, hi. I would volunteer my time. If not there, I knew some of the professors over at USC and UCLA for animation school, and like their course there, and I would offer my voice to third year students who were graduating for their thesis films. So I would always just make myself available, and sometimes you got to volunteer and work for free, or as the students' currency is green apples and granola bars. Like, that was in my Wells Fargo bank account. Uh, they thought I was like a squirrel. I was like, "Here's some peanuts. You can put that in my bank account, please." Uh, yeah, just giving the impression, and leaving the mark of someone that, like, I really care about this, and this is why I'm here. And I really do owe 99% of my career to the kindness of strangers who are now my friends for life. Just people who I met like in 1999 that I'm still working with today. To see all of us where we were at that point to now is kind of insane. To see, like, where everyone, like, left, and from that internship, to see where they've grown. And I'm very lucky, and also very proud of these people that also were chasing something. It wasn't just me, that we were all together in the trenches, you could say. And it's only because of kindness and trust that I am where I am now. um and not going to therapy. I
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could just, yeah, I was going to say, with literally all the voices in your head.
This is it, man. This is my happy place. This Sherman Oaks bomb shelter. This is my home. And I love talking to people about it like yourself, and reminding myself of how lucky I am, and revisiting all of that. I'll never like get settled and used to the fact that this is what I do for a living.
Yeah. I mean, it would be hard in a way, like, because it's just, I mean, there's acting aspects, there's films, televisions, shows, whatever the case might be. But like what you're doing is even so niche compared to all the other things that are part of the industry that you are in. It's crazy. Like, just having this conversation this way, you're in your booth, you've got your very nice microphone, and you're ready to go at any moment. The golden handcuffs, as it's often referred to, because you just never know when something's going to come in for you. I want to ask a couple more questions just as we come to the end here. Again, going back to the beginning, I want to just ask, the Woody Woodpecker film, how long did that take? How long have you been working on that?
Oh man, it didn't take long at all,
Oh,
actually.
really?
Like
Okay.
the first one that we did, it felt like we had a little bit more time. I had gone in a few more times than this one, and I think this one was definitely like, we just got to get this done fast.
Okay, so it wasn't like 2021 when this whole thing started and now it's just out.
Yeah, I think it was like about a year and a bit,
Okay.
if that. And yeah, it was just a very, I felt like it was like they had plotted out very clearly and very well. Like the director was really fun to work with, and they just knew what they wanted. And it only took, like, we did a table read, we did the actual session, then we did a pickup session, and that was it. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
they let me go off. Like they let me, we did like a lot of improv, we did a lot of uh you know, just experimenting on the character and like the scenes and the comedy, because there really were like, we could only afford to do like a take one pass. So
You got to be on your toes.
yeah, get it all out now, and then maybe some later. But otherwise, it was a pretty precise, pretty you know, uh, not much to it other than like, hey, again, I've been lucky enough to perform Woody Woodpecker. I didn't even think that Woody Woodpecker was even going to be a possibility of all like the classic icons that we have in our animation history. I never thought that I would be voicing Woody Woodpecker for a second movie. And I hope that we do a third one. I hope that there's a Woody Woodpecker trilogy out there.
There needs to be a Woody Woodpecker multiverse of some kind. Yeah, it's fun. And
I,
again, my
I,
son and I love it.
I said I'm gonna pitch either Goes to Jail or Saves Christmas, because if we're gonna lean into the earnest Goes to Camp,
I
I think,
know that go to, I think Save Christmas would be fun. I could see that.
yeah, why
Woody
not?
has a little interaction with Santa and the elves, and there you go. If you're
Wally Wallace
watching,
as Santa Claus, you know.
yeah, Buzz Buzzard could like come in and,
He's the
steal the
Grinch.
presents, kind of a Grinch theme, maybe.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I think we got it right here. This is the pitch, Netflix.
Yeah, I can assure you they're probably not going to see this, but I think,
Oh, I'm gonna
um,
tag them in this, so don't
yeah,
you
I'll,
worry.
yeah, there you go. Very cool. One last question. Again, so many amazing characters. Can you pick a favorite, or are they just all like have a special place in your life if you have successfully and amazingly performed them over the decades?
Well, there's not one job that I love more than the other. They're all equally rewarding in the same sense that I get to do what I love. Uh
But if I have to be honest, Doc, I believe I'm wearing him on my T-shirt.
I mean, Bugs is ultimately to me one of the best, if not the greatest, cartoon character ever created, and you know, I think I think everyone, because everyone knows Bugs. Once you know you press play or start a Bugs Bunny cartoon, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into, and there isn't probably one short that hasn't left someone happy or without a smile on their face. So
My cheeks are sore from smiling during this interview because it just brings such joy. And I love the fact too that his sensibility, his awareness of breaking the fourth wall,
oh yeah,
all of these things have just modernized as time goes along, and they haven't kept him in a vacuum, so to speak, of like just ignorant bliss of not knowing what things are, and always slipping in the adult humor, so to speak, and just keeping it like legit, because I think that's what makes him just the best guy around for sure.
and timeless, right? I mean,
Yeah.
again, we're still talking about this character 80 plus years later, and I always, again, taking it back to Mel Blanc, it's like seeing your favorite stand-up comedian, or going to a concert of your favorite musician. It's,
Yes.
once you hit in those rabbit season, duck season cartoons, you're there with them. You're kind of singing along, and you're kind of like repeating the dialogue, and it's just because it's so much fun. And that's, I think, at the end of the day, what this is all about is we're making cartoons. You know, that it doesn't have to be much more complicated than that.
Best job on the planet, Eric, I would say for sure.
Right. And talking about it with people like yourself who appreciate it and recognize, you know, this is
Yeah.
one of the best things to do with your family, you know, relive these experiences as you were as a kid with your own children now. So the fact that you get to hang out with your boy at Six Flags, and so do I. We have season passes. You know, I go there because I love the fact that nothing's changed since the 90s. It's still the same sun damaged Elmer Fudd statue there. You know, it's like, don't ever change it. Don't ever update it. Just keep it.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've been, but we had season passes in Marine World, Six Flags Marine World, I think it was. But yeah, nothing has changed. Literally, like, there are showpieces from the 2000s that have since been rethemed. But if you're looking and watching and knowing and can go backstage, you can see like things that once, like, Bugs Bunny and Daffy's dance party, like all these things that no longer exist for whatever reason. I mean, it's just
outdated. They could be updated. I'm telling you.
Well, actually, Six Flags, as a side note here, not to rabbit trail literally, but like, they just got bought by another company. So I think
really,
I can't think of the name offhand. I don't want to misspeak, but it's a bigger company that has money and time and finances to really like spruce up the parks. And
that's cool.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. They want to be on competition with the mouse. So
sure.
And provide that same experience that you would get going to Disneyland or wherever the case might be. But
Okay, Doc, I'm ready. Let's talk about the restrooms are that way. Where's my dressing room, Rabbit? How come I haven't had a chance to speak to Brett?
Thank you, Eric. You're the best.
We need a part 2 of this where it's just about Daffy.
Yeah, well, it's always about Daffy, right? He doesn't get as much limelight as Bugs Bunny does, but
true. I do have a Daffy version of this shirt, which is awesome.
Nice.
But I chose Bugs today.
Awesome. Eric, you're the best. This has been one of the funnest highlights of this show and that we've done. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm sure once more projects drop, there's another Looney Tunes film that may be distributed in theaters this year, possibly. The Day the Earth Blew Up, which is a Porky Daffy Looney Tunes movie, fully animated. So I'm sure once that hits, we'll have more to talk about, and you know where I am, so please give me a shout, and let's chat about more cartoons.
100%.